please give a warm Georgia Tech welcome to our guest, Opher Aviran.
Thank you so much. Shalom. Let's try again. Shalom. That's a warm welcome. Thank you. I'm really honored and privileged to be here with you this afternoon in this very prestigious forum, the Impact Speaker Series. For me to follow leaders like Vice President Al Gore, Warren Buffett, Bernie Marcus, your President, Bud Peterson, and many more, it's a great honor. I'd like first to thank Dr. Terry Bloom, the leader of this program, the former Dean of the College of Business, Dori Pep, that put this possible, Dana Harari, the Israeli PhD student who took the initiative to invite me here, Dana Weiss, our Director of Public Affairs and Media and the Consulate, who helped me to put this presentation to you, my whole team of the Consulate, not all of them are here, but I'm proud to have them with me, and also my wife, my boss, and my very good partner for 31 years now. I would like to share with you, to bring to you my perspective about leadership. I'm a diplomat now for 31 years, serving my country, my nation, Israel. And through my country and my personal story, I hope I will be able to share with you some of the challenges and opportunities we as a nation and we as diplomats are trying to present our country the best way. So, question, what is a diplomat? What a diplomat is doing today? Well, many years ago, in the salons, you can actually see them coming and talking, and perhaps, after a long trip with a ship across the ocean, coming with a special scroll from their emperor, from their not president, even king to the other king. But today, still we have certain kind of protocols. You see here our president, Rivlin, as he calls himself in the nickname Ruvi, accepted with credential of the Swaziland ambassador. But it's okay, this is a protocol part which is important, but at the same time, today the world of the social media and the new media, that easily all of us can get news from CNN, Fox, BBC, and the different social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, get information so fast. So why do you need a diplomat? I mean, the information could come so fast to that leader or that professor or that businessman. It doesn't need that diplomat over there. But my message to you is that, nevertheless, having this special relationship makes the whole difference. A special relationship we build with our partners across the world, and here in America, and here in Georgia and Atlanta, could make a difference. I'll try to share with you this difference. Looking at America, the greatest ally of Israel, a nation, a country of 50 states, so we are spread all over. We have the embassy in Washington, D.C., and the embassy is representing our country vis-à-vis the government, which means administration, Congress, and other institutions of the federal level. At the same time, as the country is so big and so important, institutions like here, Georgia Tech, or there's another one, the North example of Georgia Tech in the North, in New England. If they are New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Miami, Houston, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, we are trying to be everywhere to be relevant for academic, for business and political leaders, for community missions, for reverend pastors, and also rabbis and other community leaders. Now, so when we talking about our country, after all, we represent a country, a nation. So talking from the Bible, the land of milk and honey. Well, some milk, some honey, not much oil in that country, but not just Israel, it's the neighborhood. We are living in a neighborhood in which it's not exactly Canada, not exactly Mexico. Our neighbors are not Alabama and North Carolina. We have an area which actually caught in fire, caught in actually chaos for the last 3 to 5 years and even earlier. You know actually that Israel was attacked from Gaza, terrorist organization, the Hamas. In the Middle East, Actually, there are Al-Qaeda affiliates group in Sinai Peninsula on the Egyptian side, and the Egyptian government is fighting against these Al-Qaeda group forcefully because they see them a threat to their country as much as to us. You know, I don't have to mention to you ISIS or ISIL, and in Syria, in Iraq, and actually in Lebanon also. You have in Libya still actually the bringing down of Gaddafi. This country is not stable at all, and Al-Qaeda is celebrating a good time over there. Now, Yemen, also Al-Qaeda base. So the neighborhood is not exciting, and again, zooming in, I mentioned Gaza, Sinai Peninsula, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and this is a neighborhood we have to live in, and we have to aspire for the best and actually try to achieve and to excel as a nation. Now, we are facing threats, terror threats. Now, all of us remember 9/11, horrific day in world history and American history. But Americans were attacked before, a terrorist attack, not just in war. Go to 1983. You have your Marine forces in Lebanon. 241 personnel of the Marines were killed by attack by the Hezbollah group, which are still the biggest enemy of Israel from the north, from Lebanon. 1992, Hezbollah operatives getting assistance from Iranian diplomats in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, bringing a car bomb in front of the Israeli embassy, blowing it up, killing 29 and 250 injured. Most of them not Israelis. Most of them Argentinians that are working over there or just passing by. 2 years later, 1994, the same city, Buenos Aires, again, Hezbollah involved and actually blowing up the headquarters of the Jewish headquarters of the Jewish community in Argentina, killing dozens and injured hundreds. And also in our home, in our Holy Land, in our actually capital, Jerusalem, 2001, August, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, committing terrorist attacks, sending suicide bombers into the heart of Israel, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Haifa, and other places. In this incident, this pizza place, Bravo, 15 civilians are dead, 130 injured. Now that year, 2001, 1,000 Israelis are killed by suicide bomber. At that time, we have of 6 million people. Just imagine, in proportion, America, 300 million people, multiplied by 50. 50,000 Americans to be killed in one year by suicide bombers. After the 10, 15, 20, 100, you'll take strong actions. And we took strong action. Actually, we stopped the terror, the wave of suicide terror from the West Bank and from Gaza. But this terror is not coming in vacuum. It has a sponsor, it has a head, that's Iran. This nation, the Islamic State of Iran, took over by revolution of Khomeini, to be replaced by Khamenei later, committed for the destruction and annihilation of the State of Israel and the Jewish people. And using any way to try to achieve their goal, first of all trying to get nuclear military capability, and they've been caught by IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, as cheating the West so many times. And not just having this nuclear capability, military one, but also have long-range missiles that could cover, not today already, all of Israel, and actually Bulgaria, and actually Greece, and deep into Central Europe. But they're developing long-range missiles, ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missiles, that can reach the American eastern shores. Within the range of development of their missile industry, they could reach the Savannah in New York, in Philadelphia. Within a year or 2 years, actually, they will be within their range. At the same time, as mentioned earlier, the advocates that are sponsors of terror, Hezbollah in the Lebanon, Hamas, Islamic Jihad in Gaza, and the West Bank, whatever they can. And they speak for themselves. Look for the left-hand side, August 16, only about 6 weeks ago. Hamas tweets Al-Qassam Brigade, which is the military wing of the Hamas. We are continuing our struggle. Allah is our goal. The Prophets is our leader. Jihad is our way. And death for Allah is our most exalted wish. And against Supreme Leader Khamenei, Holocaust is an event whose reality is uncertain, and if it has happened, it's uncertain how it has happened. Here in Georgia, here in Atlanta, in America and Israel and Europe, that are survivors of the Holocaust. And they know the story. They were there. We have family relatives who were in the Holocaust. Now, Israel wants peace. Tiny country in the ocean of the Arab world, Islamic world, we want to live in peace with our neighbors. For that reason, Prime Minister Sharon, in 2005, decided to disengage completely from Gaza. All military and civilians to be disengaged and get out of Gaza completely. Not one single Israeli civilian soldier left in Gaza. We left them actually the best quality greenhouses, 3,000 greenhouses, just to use them as we use them to export agriculture produced to Europe. They burned them the first day. The Hamas took over in bloody military coup d'etat against the Palestinian Authority who was running Gaza a year later, 2006. And when we took over, it was one purpose, to use it as a launching pad for rockets and attacks against Israel. If you look at that map over here, you see the rockets coming from Gaza, from the heart of Gaza, near schools, near hospitals, near mosques, towards Israel. They're using the population as human shield. Now you see that kind of diagram here. Only we have like almost 900 rockets or 1,200 rockets on Israel. Then we went to operation end of 2008, early 2009 to protect our own people. The same happened 2012, November 2012. Almost 900 rockets on our cities, on our villages, on our towns. We went to defend ourselves. And recently, once again, I'll refer to that in a moment. The operation that we conducted recently in Gaza, called Operation Protective Edge. It was the longest, actually, war we faced since our independence, 1948. For 51 days, Israel was under attack. 6 of 8 million Israelis, 75% were under attack by rockets. And you see the picture over the top. It happened to my daughter, who was in Israel at that time, 18 years old. She went to Tel Aviv with friends, middle of the street, siren, shelter is too far, you just lie down and hope for the best. But not just the best, we just don't just pray. We have America with our side, with the Iron Dome missile defense system that saved so many lives. 4,400 rockets were shelled or launched on Israel during that time. We accepted each and every ceasefire offered by Egypt, by US, by UN. All of them rejected or broke by the Hamas. And eventually they tried to use terror tunnel. They dug under the border between Gaza and Israel to be able to penetrate Israel and to abduct and kill as many Israelis as they can. To our kibbutzim, to our cooperative villages, to our cities, towns, whatever. And we had the right and the duty to defend our people. At the same time, not that everything is so bad. We have partners that are looking and believing the same value we believe in, of peace. But you need leadership for that. It was President Sadat of Egypt who called on actually TV interview with American network, I'm willing to come to Jerusalem to negotiate peace with Prime Minister Begin. Begin invited him, he came to the Knesset, he gave a speech, he said, no more war, no more bloodshed. He said it in English, and he said it also in Arabic to his own people. And Begin, who said before he was elected the Prime Minister, I will never give an inch of Sinai, he gave all of Sinai for peace. When you have world leadership, you can reach peace. And not only Egypt, the most important Arab country, also Jordan, another very pivotal country in the Middle East, very important country that at the moment standing almost alone against ISIS, against ISIL, and enjoying the good support of America. So the leadership of Prime Minister Rabin, King Hussein, and the sponsorship and the support of President Clinton, we reached a peace treaty with Jordan. These two peace treaties with Jordan and Egypt, serving us as the pillars of our strategic stability and peace in the region. Now, Israel. How many of you have been in Israel before? Could you raise your hands? Well, next year, all the professor, you have actually started to take your student to Israel. It's about time. The business schools over there are very good, I can tell you. We are smaller than New Jersey. If you take the size of Israel, you see Tel Aviv over there, and you see Jerusalem, our capital here, it's only 40 miles. It's about the distance between actually Alpharetta, north of Alpharetta, to Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. As small, this is between our capital, Jerusalem, and our major metropolitan area, Tel Aviv. To Haifa in the north, actually a hub of high-tech also, at only 60 miles. From here to UGA, but I don't know if I should mention other universities in this hall. We reach, in spite of all the wars fought against us, we move forward, and actually we increase our economy, and we develop our academia, and we reach a point actually today, our country, economy is strong. We are ranked close to countries like huge, mega, like China, not far from the UK. US is above everybody. And the country has been a destination for tourism, for religious tourism, pilgrimage, and also modern tourism. So you have for Christian pilgrims, Church of the Holy Sepulchre in the old city of Jerusalem. You have for Haifa is the international center of the Baha'i movement from all over the world. They are persecuted in Iran, and they have safe haven in Israel. Jerusalem also is actually the holy site for Judaism and Islam. So the Western Wall, the only remaining from the Second Temple, where Jews are actually praying for peace and for security, and actually the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is important mosque for the Islam on the Temple Mount. And then, if you like to have fun, go for Tel Aviv. 24/7, New York and Atlanta, the same good life in the evening. Go pubs, bars, jazz, blues, like symphony orchestra. You can have Israeli symphony orchestra over there. Great place to enjoy. By the way, the LGBT certain publication put Tel Aviv only second to San Francisco in the quality of life and pluralism of the city, welcoming people from different choice. And Jerusalem, not just old city, but actually modern city with high tech, and company like Intel has its own R&D and actual production center in Jerusalem. And indeed, Israel was called the startup nation because necessity is the mother of inventions. As we used to say, Israelis, it took Moses 40 years to find the only place in the Middle East without a drop of oil. So then it was not a good navigator, but at least he brought us to, holy place. So necessity. We didn't have enough support. We don't have natural resources. Only recently we found the gas on the shores of Israel. So Israel became the startup nation, it's called. And in 2012, Israel had more companies listed in NASDAQ than any country outside from the US and China. We are like second to Silicon Valley in the number of companies who are actually having startups and company. In Israel, to fail, it's okay. That's part of the culture of entrepreneurship that you are taught here in Georgia Tech by these schools, so business school and actually entrepreneurship program. And there are companies that started in Israel and became a known name. Waze recently, that navigation company, has been offered, it's a very small startup, was offered by Apple $300 million, and the answer was no. They offered by actually later on by Facebook $600 million. They had the guts to say no. Eventually Google bought them for $1 billion. And Google has Google Maps. They still bought Waze because of their ingenuity. Nobel laureate. We are honored and proud to have so many Nobel laureates. Again, we have 12 since 1966, and ranking so high, 11 Nobel laureates per capita. We were proud. You have here Professor Daniel Shechtman, who came here to Georgia Tech as your guest only 2 years ago, and Professor Chechanover in 2004, so 2011 he was here. He came to Georgia Tech because the importance of Georgia Tech. My wife and I had the honor to host him in our home, to bring a business leader, government leaders, and academia leaders especially to meet him in our home, both of them. Here you see Prime Minister Menachem Begin receiving his Peace Prize for the peace treaty with Egypt, together with President Sadat. So what is the role of Israeli diplomat in Atlanta? First of all, we have 6 states to cover: Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, North and South Carolina. So which one will I start today or tomorrow? It's challenging. and we don't have a big team. It's my Deputy Consul General who is working for me with everything. Our colleague, the Chief of Security, and myself are diplomats. We have a great local team, Israeli and American, working for us. Some of them are here doing a great job, enabling us to succeed and to excel. And actually, my former Deputy Consul General gave me once a gift. It's a dreidels, you can see. So the idea, she gave me the dreidels, and she gave me a box of juggling balls. So I will take the dreidel and like, okay, what state today? Georgia or Tennessee or whatever. Then I'll turn it again. What topic? Academia, AC, or business, or going to Jewish, JE, or whatever, Christian. And, well, I'm not using the dreidels every day, but I'm trying to think together with my team the best way to address it. So Diplomat has customary or traditional roles of giving services, representing our country to the place, to the state, to the nation we are working with, vis-à-vis governors and state and federal senators and congressmen, but at the same time giving security, consular services like passport, like visa, like notary assistance, and also the organization to run, finance, budgeting, manpower, everything else. But we just do it, just a passive work. We don't do really much. So this is our active, proactive role. We're trying to pursue it and to increase our relationship and to promote it with the countries and the state we are working with. So national security collaboration, 9/11, again, as a milestone for working more closer with America and facing the same challenges. Defense, cybersecurity, health emergency, preparedness, defense. Lockheed Martin, a very important company here in Marietta, in Georgia. They built the C-130J, one of the best transport planes for Israel special units in the world, provided for the Israeli Air Force. And there's a unique story about Lockheed Martin and the Hercules. When you celebrated 200 years of your independence, 1976, or that day, when you were celebrating, there were Jews and Israeli kept hostages in Uganda, in Africa, by terrorists, Arab terrorists with German pro-Nazi terrorists. Those planes, the Hercules, led the Israeli best commander to fly all over, to come to land over there at night, and there was a rescue operation, save each and every of the passengers. Only one person was killed, actually the commander of the whole operation. His name actually Yoni Netanyahu, and you can guess he's the brother of Benjamin Netanyahu, our prime minister. So our relationship with you in America are strong and valid and keep on going. Trade and economy and commerce, to share information, to share knowledge on solar energy, on the HIT, health IT, academic. Again, I'm honored, especially honored, privileged to be here today. We are trying to work with universities across the region, in Georgia, in other 5 states. And arts and culture and sport, having some fun also, not just working hard all the time. And it's great because it's a pride to bring to Atlanta and other places the best of the Israeli culture. In basketball, we cannot beat you. Baseball, we are not playing really, and not what you call football. We call it, you call it football. We have football called soccer. But to be effective, you have to reach out, and I mentioned at the beginning, how we can be relevant, to build relationship, the very first of the beginning of this conversation, to build relationship with leaders on the federal level, on the state level, on the city level. And indeed, you see at the top over there, Governor Nathan Deal and his wife, the First Lady, and my wife, Talia, and myself. And it took me some time, but he was convinced, he chose to come this year to Israel, the only destination he went overseas, because he saw the impact of the relationship between Georgia and Israel. And then we was there, I was at the other side of the picture, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, which was a great moment for him, a great moment for the governor, because they found common ground. They were talking about cybersecurity, for example, which is a major issue for Georgia. I know here in Georgia Tech, we just brought recently one of the top experts, and also for Israel. And Phil Bryant, the governor of Mississippi, a great friend of Israel also. And I went over there with my team, meeting him in his office, discussing the visit. And there's his wife, also lovely First Lady. And he will be going to Israel November next month to attend and to address International Conference on Homeland Security. Now, so it goes both ways in different states. But also we are bringing our very special guest here to Atlanta. And it's not always obvious, you know, and I know the importance of Georgia. In Atlanta, you have Georgia Tech, you have UPS, you have Delta, you have Coca-Cola, you have CNN, you have so much. But people in Europe and in Israel, unfortunately for them it's New York, California, perhaps Chicago, and we basically are serving as ambassadors of this state, of this city to Israel. How much actually Kasim Reed is doing a great job in this city, how much the governor is doing a great job for the state, and more. And so we have here, for example, the visit of our ambassador Ron Dermer, who came from Washington in his first visit outside D.C. to any region, southeast, northeast, whatever. He came to Atlanta first. And he had a great visit. He met with the governor, he met with congressional leaders, Democrats and Republicans. The joke was at that time, that was the morning, the first time after Phil Gingrey, Jack Kingston, and Paul Brown decided to run for the Senate. And they found themselves suddenly sitting together on one table, and with David Scott, who is a Democrat. They say, well, only Israeli ambassador can bring us here together. And CNN, very important media channel. We believe that you're coming as a diplomat after 31 years. You have to understand the community and the society and the nation you're working for and with. So I know Israel, I'm Israeli. But to get to know America, it took me some time. But one thing it was clear to me before I came here. I met our ambassador in Israel before I flew to Atlanta. And he said to me, Opher, you're coming to the birthplace of the African American movement, of the civil rights movement. The legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. and actually keeping that legacy alive of freedom, actually equality, of fair chance, of justice. And indeed, there were Jewish leaders, Jewish rabbis, that together with other brave Christian leaders that stood and marched together with Martin Luther King Jr. to Washington and in Selma and other places. And we are following their steps. And we are following them, and actually when we have the Israeli ambassador, the current one, Ron Dermer, and the former one, Michael Oren, and with our ambassador to the United Nations, Ron Proso, and the mayor of Jerusalem, Nir Barkat, all coming to pay respect to the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta King. And all of them are honored to meet Martin Luther King III and Bernice King and his senior pastor, Raphael Warnock of the Ebenezer Church. And it means a lot to us. Now, I mentioned solar energy earlier. This is a great example of a leader who makes a difference. A Jewish leader who made Aliyah, immigrated from Boston to Israel, but actually a liberal who believes in Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. When he fought against Israeli bureaucracy, and we have enough bureaucracy, and he succeeded to put the first effective and commercial solar power station in Israel in the Arava, north of Eilat. The first action he moved when going overseas to try to make a good business, he went to Africa. And I like actually to watch this film, which is put by CNN, and one of the key leaders, 6 of them from the world, making a difference for our world. Thank you. So much, my God, I have sympathy to you. Okay, we came almost to the end. So I said culture and sport. Indeed, even we are so excited about our academic career and actually research, whatever our political or other matters, we like to enjoy life. And what is so great for us, we can bring the best of Israel and actually exchange and engage with you. So put in your calendar, October 18, about 2 weeks, Saturday, one of the best Israeli contemporary dance group, Vertigo, is coming to Atlanta for the U.S. premiere. Not New York, not LA, in Atlanta. So put in your calendar and come. It's a great show. Only just a few months ago, May, 5 months ago, Israeli musician, artist, performer, singer, Esther Rada, came to the main stage of Atlanta Jazz Festival. She was not chosen because she was Israeli. She was chosen by the Atlanta Jazz Festival because she's a great singer. And we were there, we had fun, we saw so many people over there, and great fun with her. And the basketball, again, we cannot beat you, but we can salute you at least. So you can see over there at the top, the third to the right, Dominic Wilkins, a legend for Atlanta Hawks, for the NBA, for America, and we came to give him, to pay him respect. And it's not popular. I should not show here, Alabama, but Nick Saban is, an institution. I hope next time I'll be able to put in my photo a football signed by the coach of the Yellow Jackets or another team, or actually the Bulldogs. I should be careful because I might be, having a hard time here. But it's fun, it's great, and it's an honor. I would like to conclude by mentioning that, again, in our work, we had the pleasure of meeting with top leaders of the world, Vice President Biden, with King Abdullah II of Jordan in my capacity in Israel, but also having fun. That's in Australia. Kangaroo, I don't have to tell you, and penguin, I don't have to explain to you, just having fun for the family. I wish to conclude by saying the following. We have a tough neighborhood, but we have a great nation. But we are lucky to have a great ally like the United States of America that support us, that care about the same values we care about, because we care about life. We cherish life as you cherish life. And together we can make a difference. And I would like to say something in relationship to the crisis recently in Gaza. And I said it in the rallies all across the Southeast, in 9 different places. I repeat it all over and again. We want peace. We deserve peace. The Palestinians deserve peace as much as we deserve peace. The war is not against the Palestinians. It was against terror. You're fighting terror. We are fighting terror. We hope actually the day will come, we'll have peace in our homeland. And you'll not be having too much your budget going for homeland security or defense. You don't have to fight against ISIS. Let's hope actually that what you present, Georgia Tech, students, academia, will be the shining example for all of us to invest in culture, in education, and in business. Thank you so much for having me. If there is interest for some questions, I'll be happy to answer questions, and there will be some microphones both sides here. Just raise your hands, and so we'll bring you the microphone. Okay, please, here.
Thank you so much for speaking. I know you talked about how like new social media is changing the way we see the world, and how personal relationships are super important. But have you ever thought, or maybe do you guys ever use social media to kind of share what you and your team are doing, or how do you connect with the people when you're here in Atlanta or abroad, just to kind of share? And have you thought about using social media?
Thank you. Great question. Indeed, I mentioned earlier Dina Weiss, our Director for Media and Public Affairs. Yes, indeed, she's working with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I don't think we are active. But Twitter and Facebook, definitely. We're sharing our achievements. We are sharing with you the challenges we are facing. We have a newsletter. We put every Friday information about Israel and the Southeast, Israel in general, Israel specific, about from security to culture to innovation to achievements and also challenges. And from time to time, I'm also putting my message through these kind of channels. And the numbers of the followers on Facebook and Twitters are growing and growing, so we are very satisfied. You're right, this is one of the most important vehicles to reach out, especially to young, educated audience, that this is the way, this is what they consume, and through that we should deliver and share information. Thank you. Yes, please.
You mentioned how personal relationships are a very important diplomatic tool. I was wondering if you could elaborate more on how you use that in your leadership style.
Well, first of all, it should be nice. It takes time. You come and you visit and you build. I'll give you an example. Okay, and it's not. And one should be smart to understand that he or she cannot build the world alone. It's partnership. It's actually people that can open the doors for you, can show you the way, can give you advice what to do and what not to do. So when Governor Nathan Deal was elected 4 years ago, and I was offered by one of my Jewish friends, actually, would you like to invite him for the Hanukkah party, lighting the candles. I said, will he come? He said, Opher, say yes, and I will give you a date, and don't argue about the date, and he will come. And that person had a relationship with him, so he spoke with him, and he and Sandra Dill accepted the invitation, came. I had the privilege of working with Mayor Kassim, with a great friend. We met several times. I heard about him a lot before I came here. And we shared ideas and opportunities. Phil Bryant, I met him when I came to visit Mississippi for the first time. He was Lieutenant Governor. I was brought to him by the Secretary of State of Mississippi, whom I met in Israel. He was visiting Israel before he came to Atlanta, and I got a phone call one day with heavy Southern accent. My accent, as you notice, is Israeli accent. I cannot, imitate local accent, but heavy Southern accent. It's Secretary of State of Mississippi, and I'm in Israel. Can I meet you? Like out of the blue? Yes, by all means. We met. When I came to Mississippi, he said, I'd like to bring you to the Lieutenant Governor, Phil Bryant. I said, by all means, it would be great. And I came over there. We have a nice meeting. At the end of the meeting, the governor is saying to me, the Lieutenant Governor, still at that time, he said, Opher, I would like you to come now to address the Senate. So I was, okay. And I said, sure, no problem. But just, I have to go to the restroom for a moment. I went to the restroom. I said, okay, I have 3 minutes. What am I going to say? I figured it out. And I spoke about Israel and America, about Mississippi. And eventually, they didn't kick me out. They just gave me applause. So it was not too bad. And later on, when he decided to run for governor, I went to visit Mississippi. Even the polls were talking about, actually, that he's going to be elected easily. I went to see him, asked the meeting to be a private meeting. I went to, actually, the Democratic candidate, the mayor of Hattiesburg. I drove especially more than an hour to Hattiesburg to see him. And I also go for a private meeting. I met both of them. I wish both of them a success, which is impossible. And eventually, Phil Bryant was elected. And then, again, we have to be creative with my team, amazing team. There was a different team at that time, but all of them, really, I'm lucky. So these are the chutzpah, the guts to ask something which is not done. America will not ask because they are polite. I called him and asked, the day actually he was elected as a new governor, I called his cell because I said, Governor Phil, congratulations. Opher, so good to hear you, or whatever. I said, I have a question to you. Will you be willing to be our guest of honor, to honor you the night before inauguration for the Jewish community, which almost non-existed in Mississippi, and the consulate? And he said yes. Probably he was a little bit too happy, he forgot actually. But the night before inauguration, here are other things to do than actually coming to Israeli and Jewish community event. He came and he said the following word. He said, he came with his wife and his 3 boys and sons and daughters. And he said the following: if Israel goes, so goes America. That was the ending of his speech, and he started actually quoting from the Bible. I cannot quote from the Bible without holding the Bible. Some of you know the Bible by heart. So it's something deep, it's something rooted. Actually, you build on this relationship. It's not the nice face or whatever. It's getting relationship and building step by step, and then eventually you have some results. Next question.
Just one right here.
Thanks.
Hi. Kind of with the new event that's going on, I know since you're a lot of in charge of the Southeast, the new kind of ordinance to deepen the Panama Canal will affect a lot of the port cities. Do you see that this new stuff going on, opening up any sort of either trade or technological advances for Israel?
Great question. Thank you so much. Indeed, we follow these kind of developments, and already the Savannah is the second biggest port in the eastern shores of the United States, and the fourth in all the ports of America, seaports, but actually the biggest single container port. And we brought, about 2 years ago, there's a big conference here in Atlanta every year about logistics. Last year was MODEX, or this year. And we brought a special delegation to come to this place for this conference because of the UPS and other major companies here. We told them you have to come specially to Savannah. And we went to Savannah to visit the city, to meet with the port authority over there. We were guests of the mayor of Savannah, another example of relationship. We invited her to Israel. She came to Israel. She got excited about our country. She's the person of the generation. She was a student when actually Martin Luther King Jr. went to Washington, had a famous speech, "I have a dream." She was there. She was inspired by him. And she mentioned to me, she said, "Opher, I will never forget. Actually, when I was young, my parents, the Jewish community in Savannah, put the utmost trust in us, but not just letting us having a decent job, but actually in their small supermarket to run the cashier, to be in charge of the finance because they trust them and that is bond." And she came to Israel as a guest of the Jewish community of Savannah, the Israeli government, and she had that visit. And when she came back, the doors of Savannah opened for us. And we're trying to bring Israeli businessmen to Savannah to explore these options. This is one of, again, a great example you gave me about relationship you build slowly and goes both ways. Yes, please.
On a more, I guess, personal note, being from Israel, what was the biggest cultural barrier, not only being in the United States, but also being in the United States South?
The cultural barrier for me?
Mm-hmm.
Americans, and I admire you, are polite. You do not say no most of the case. You say like yes, but in such a way that you have to understand that yes is perhaps, yes might be no, yes might be no way. But you'll smile, you'll put it in a nice, package. So we have to understand, my previous position at the Foreign Ministry was the head of the Bureau of Personnel Training and Development. So in charge of the training of, from the cadets, the junior diplomats, up to the ambassadors. And we brought to give a workshop for diplomats going overseas, a lady who is actually, her expertise actually culture differences. And overcome these differences we are coming to serve in other countries. So some things are obvious. Israelis will say, okay, China, Japan, different culture, we have to adopt certain, rules and whatever. Give it, for example, somebody talking about, the business card, 2 hands, bow or not bow, whatever. With Arab or Muslim, you will behave in a certain way. America, we know America. We see TV series. We, see American films. We are visiting America after we finished the army, trying to coast. So we know America. We know America in a way. But to visit America as a tourist is one thing. To live here, and there's not one America. New England is not Miami, and Miami is not Atlanta, and actually Los Angeles is quite different from San Francisco. And you have to understand the culture, and you have to get to relate to it in a proper way. So it took me some time to understand that people are indeed nice to me, but some actually have to understand what is no and what is yes. Yes, please. Thank you. I can hear you.
You mentioned Judaism several times. So how has religion played a role in public service for you?
Excellent question. Well, all the questions are fantastic here. We in Israel, as Jews, so-called take for granted our Judaism because, the Jewish state. So most of us, the vast majority of Israel, we call it secular. We're not going to the shul, the synagogue, whatever you call it, temple here, whatever, except perhaps Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, and perhaps the New Jewish Year. And that, like we did, I would take Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, we are, okay, taking it more seriously. But that's it. Because we feel it, and we know it, and it's all over. And also because when Yom HaShoah, the Holocaust Commemoration Day, for example, the whole nation, actually, there's sober music in the radio station, the documentaries in the TV and the radio. The whole nation is actually in certain mood. When you live and serve overseas, you're in a different country. So you have to understand, first of all, that Jewish life, the temple, the congregation, is the center, the JCC, the center of Jewish life. People are coming over there to find their Jewishness. And for us, to be involved, actually, to come to these places. These days, is there actually, last Thursday, Friday, was a new Jewish year, Rosh Hashanah. And actually, coming Saturday, it's Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. And these high holidays. Now, I found myself, and I'm proud to say it, actually, after more than 4 years, I just started my last year, the 5th year here in Atlanta, that every year, I'm going with my wife and sometimes my daughters to the shul, the synagogue. I'm trying to reach out at least 39 synagogues, which part of Atlanta Rabbinical Association. Then there is Chabad synagogue, and there's other Orthodox synagogues. I cannot be everywhere. But definitely I'm making a rule for myself and a privilege to come to, for example, the Orthodox Zionist synagogue on the eve of Yom Kippur. I will go on Yom Kippur to the temple, and then the congregation, another congregation, for be there on the eve of Rosh Hashanah. Was the AA Ahavat Achim, 127 years old synagogue, great communities, and they are also serving us actually as a home when we have our important days of the year. Yom HaZikaron, which means in Hebrew, Memorial Day for the Israeli fallen soldiers. Something quite striking actually. In America, Memorial Day is a shopping day. It is people are going to the, to pay respect to your soldiers and brave people who died in war, whatever, defending your country. But the country, in general, actually, it's a good day for celebration, for picnic, whatever. In Israel, Memorial Day is a sober day. We just concentrate on trying to embrace these families and to support them. And then what is unique, actually, the end of Yom HaZikaron, that Memorial Day, is the beginning of Yom HaAtzmaut, our Independence Day. So from very sober mood, we are moving to very happy mood, which is tough. But actually, the decision of our first Prime Minister, we should, when we celebrate, first we should remember those who paid the ultimate price to enable us to celebrate. So we have Yom HaZikaron for the Israeli Fallen Memorial Day in Ahavat Achim Synagogue in Buckhead. We have the Yom HaAtzmaut, our Independence Day celebration in the temple. So bring us closer the community to the Jewishness. And my daughter, who is now 18 years old, she's a senior student in high school here, she said actually last year that she came here, she had no connection to Judaism. She found here her Jewishness. By being here and going to these places and to realize actually you have to connect, you have to take a step forward to engage, and you feel it. Thank you. Please.
With the recent events in Ferguson, Missouri, there's been comparison between the treatment of U.S. citizens in Ferguson and Palestinians in Gaza, and Palestinians are even tweeting those or using Instagram or other forms of social media to give tips to those in Ferguson how to avoid injury by the police based on their interactions with Israelis. Can you give your perspective on that?
It's such unfortunate and false comparison. First of all, a bit of history from the Israeli-Palestinian side. 1993, our Prime Minister, late Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, and Foreign Minister at that time, Shimon Peres, reaching a historical agreement with the PLO leader, Yasser Arafat. A terrorist leader who was in charge of killing of so many Israelis, but to try to reach out to him as a secular leader, not as an extreme radical Muslim leader, to try to convert him from a terrorist leader to a political leader that will have peace between Palestine and Israel. Our current Prime Minister, Netanyahu, committed himself for a two-state solution. Israel is the Jewish state for the Jewish people, and Palestine as the Palestinian state, living in peace and security side by side. Now, Palestinians have the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. Palestinians in Gaza, actually, as I said earlier, have been now the victims of the Hamas, because Hamas is using them as a human shield. Now, in Israel, in case Palestinian feels injustice is made for him or for her, he can appeal to the High Court of Israel, even if he's not Israeli citizen, to ask for justice. And when we built that security fence between the West Bank and Israel after that suicide bomber campaign I mentioned earlier, of 1,000 Israelis were killed in 1 year. So that fence actually protecting life of Israelis. When the Palestinians felt that the demarcation of the line of that fence was causing them injustice, taking appropriation their cultivated lands, they could appeal to the High Court of Justice in Israel. If there was military security justification, the appeal was rejected and they were compensated. In case they were right, the High Court of Justice in Israel forced the Israeli government, the Israeli military, to move the fence back west into Israel and not actually hurting their own rights. Now, it's a completely different case. Israel is democracy, and I wish, and Israel, before we were talking about Palestinian state years ago, they were called Peace Now movement. Israelis from opposition from the left called Israel to move to have peace with the Palestinians. I wish the day will come, we'll have a NGO like Peace Now movement in Israel in a Palestinian camp. To be peace now, peace with Israel now. What we see, unfortunately, is only incitement of even the Palestinian Authority, not just the Hamas, calling for killing Israelis, celebrating what they call martyr, suicide bombers. This is not educate peace. I mean, I mentioned earlier, President Sadat, King Hussein tried to teach their people to move from war to peace. It's about time the Palestinians will educate their own people for peace. And what happened actually in Missouri was very tragic, but nothing concerning, nothing connected with what happened in Israel and the Palestinians. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for coming to speak. I understand that Israel has unilaterally taken many steps towards peace, but I want to know what the official position is on the settlements in the West Bank and Golan Heights and East Jerusalem, and how they've been internationally condemned repeatedly by the UN and by the majority of nations and legal scholars.
Okay, thank you for the question. If you talk about American history, I think the word settlement has no negative connotation. America encountered the West moving from, the West called New Amsterdam before New York and other places to conquer and to reach up to California. On the mountains and the hills, there were settlements. Now, the only place settlement gets a negative connotation is about Israel. Now, let's put the facts first. There were not even one single settlement in the West Bank, or we call it Judea and Samaria, it doesn't matter the name, before 67. Israel was attacked by Egypt, by Jordan, by Syria before 67. There was no Jewish state before 48. And Jews like my father, my late father, my mother and others were attacked in the land of Palestine or the land of Israel by Arabs. Settlement is one of the issues that should be addressed in a permanent settlement negotiation between us and Palestinians. There's a question of borders, question of security, question of water, a question of settlements, and another one or two. And what has been agreed practically, but not in writing, between Abu Mazen, the current president of the Palestinian Authority, and Yossi Berin, one of the founders of the Oslo Track, so that peace process between Palestine and Israel, the PLO in Israel in the 90s, that when we will reach a final settlement of peace between us and the Palestinians, we'll have their own state, Israel will actually withdraw from most of the West Bank. The same idea was actually discussed when President Clinton hosted the summit in Camp David with Prime Minister Barak and Yasser Arafat at that time President of Palestinian Authority, that most of the settlements were going to be pulled out. Now, 70% of the Jews living in the West Bank are with certain blocks on the border between Israel and the West Bank, like enclaves, like Ariel and Gush Etzion and Jerusalem, Ma'ale Adumim, and those places actually to be annexed to Israel, but they take only like 3 to 5% of the total square miles or square kilometers of the whole West Bank. Even though it was discussed between At that time, the Prime Minister Barak, and later on Prime Minister Olmert of Israel, with at that time Abu Mazen, that we will compensate the Palestinians who are actually giving the same square miles from Israel given to Palestine. So the Palestinians will have 100% of territory. At the same time, those 70% of Jews will remain at these places. They build their homes over there, they build their families, and this is the place for them to stay. So settlement is an issue, but not the obstacle. And it's a matter of countries to see the real picture, and I believe those who look the both sides will find the right picture.
I'm the last question, I think.
Oh, what an honor. My host.
What are the measures of being a successful consul general? How do we know if you're doing a good job, or how does your boss know if you're doing a good job? I don't think it's War and Peace, but,
it's a bit,
but it might be something else. And is it easier to achieve those outcomes when you're from a country in a safer neighborhood or in a more difficult neighborhood?
Okay. I feel a bit embarrassed to boast or whatever, to talk about my achievements, but I would try to put that in perspective. We have 9 Consulate General in America. We have excellent team. Each Consul General and his deputy and his consuls are doing amazing jobs, different challenges, different opportunities. This passing, let's say, the second half of 2014, about 9 governors from America are going to visit Israel. 6 governors are going to visit Israel, 2 of them from my region. Not a bad result. Okay. We have to fight for I mentioned actually, some of the people are not paying attention to Georgia and to Atlanta. We have one of the top cybersecurity experts in Israel, is a chief scientist's office working in cybersecurity and homeland security. He was invited to come to important roadshow of companies in Chicago, invited to another event in Orlando, and I intercepted the cable, came from Jerusalem, that he's flying. I said, no way, you're not flying over Atlanta without stopping here. And he came here, and again with my excellent team, Harold and Gillian here, economic and academic director, we put a great team with the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, with Georgia Tech here, special luncheon, with our top leader, Chancellor Hank Huckabee of the Chancellor of the Regions, all got involved. Some top of the business companies here are interested in cybersecurity, met him one-on-one with the top leadership. So you have to fight to be there. You have to try to convince. Sometimes it's not you can try and convince, but other reason, objective reason, will not enable those governors or mayors to come. But it's difficult to measure it, but it's overall picture that people can get impression after some time how Consulate is performing or not performing. I hope we are performing well, and I'm honored and delighted to meet you all, and I wish you all a very successful academic year and in your business career. And come to Israel. You'll never be the same. It's a great experience. Thank you.
Thank you.